What actually happens when you leave? Your neighbor knows things about your cat that you don't. They know what time the yowling starts. They know how long it lasts. They know which days are worse. They've heard things through the wall that you will never hear because you're never there when they happen. Most cats look completely normal the moment you walk back through the door. Calm, maybe a little indifferent, acting like nothing happened, which, from their perspective, nothing did. But you've seen the evidence. The sofa cushion on the floor, the corner of the rug that wasn't like that this morning, the very specific silence of a cat who knows something is different about the atmosphere when you walked in. You assumed it was boredom, maybe mischief, maybe just a bad day. But behavioral researchers have been doing something for decades that most owners haven't. They leave a camera running, walk out, and watch. And what those cameras capture, hour by hour, heartbeat by heartbeat, is one of the most revealing findings in animal psychology. Your cat isn't just missing you when you're gone. Something specific is happening in their brain, and it starts before you know it. You even close the door. In 2010, researchers at the University of Milan installed cameras in the homes of 23 cats and left. Vocalization, meowing, crying, yowling began at an average of 3 minutes and 15 seconds after departure. Destructive behavior within 7 minutes. 7 minutes, that's how long it takes before the shoes are at risk. But the more interesting finding was what came after. That first frantic phase, the meowing, the door scratching, gradually subsides. And from the outside, if you came home to a quiet house and nothing visibly destroyed, you'd assume the cat had settled. It hadn't. What the cameras showed was that as vocalization decreased, pacing increased, heart rate stayed elevated. The cat had shifted from one expression of distress to a different one. The noise stopped, but the physiological activation didn't. And researchers tracking behavior over longer periods found something even more telling. The pattern doesn't follow a clean decline. Every 23 to 28 minutes, there's a new spike, a renewed burst of movement or vocalization, followed by a quieter period, then another spike. Not settling, cycling. The silence between those spikes is not calm. Now compare that to what cameras capture in cats without separation issues. Swedish researchers at the University of Agricultural Sciences left this group alone for up to 4 hours. These cats spent approximately 97% of their time in passive behavior, lying down, resting, occasionally checking the water bowl. Not distressed, not bored, not giving a damn. It's not a cat coat. Not a cat in normal wear. It's a cat in particular, with long not bored, waiting. The difference between those two groups isn't breed, it isn't age, and it's barely even about genetics. The research points to one variable above almost all others, what the cat has been taught to expect. But before you get there, let's talk about what happens before you even leave. In the 1980s, veterinary behaviorists Borchelt and Voith documented something that has been confirmed repeatedly since. Cats with separation anxiety often begin showing measurable stress responses while their owner is still in the house. Not when the door closes, before the bag comes out. Through simple conditioning, cats learn to chain your entire departure routine backwards. You check your phone, you put on your shoes, you glance at the time. Each of those actions, repeated hundreds of mornings in a row, has become a signal, and the signal means one thing: I'm about to be alone. By the time you reach the door, some cats are already pacing, some are hiding, some are following you from room to room, like they know exactly what's coming, and are hoping, somehow, that this time you'll stay. There's a practical implication here that challenges a lot of popular advice. The standard recommendation for years has been to desensitize your cat to departure cues. Pick up your keys randomly throughout the day, put on your shoes, and then sit back down, so those cues lose their meaning. Researchers at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona reviewed this in 2014 and found the evidence more complicated than expected. Making departures unpredictable doesn't reduce fear, but it does reduce the risk of loss. So, if you're a cat, don't fear for all cats. For some, it increases it, because the problem isn't the keys. The problem is the uncertainty about what happens after you go. Your cat isn't afraid of your shoes. They're afraid you won't come back. The Royal Veterinary College ran a longitudinal study called Generation Kitten, tracking 145 cats from adoption through their first 6 months of life. They were specifically looking for what predicted separation-related problems, and they found something that surprised a lot of trainers. Emotional goodbyes didn't cause it. Long farewells, big hugs at the door, the whole five. At production some of us do every morning, no significant effect. What mattered was the return. Cats whose owners came home to find damage and responded with visible upset, raised voices, prolonged reactions, that visible frustration directed at the cat, were 6 times more likely to develop separation-related behaviors. The cat doesn't connect your frustration to the chair leg it destroyed 4 hours ago. There's no chain of causation available to them over that time window. What the cat connects your frustration to is the fact that it's not a cat. It's a cat, it's a cat, it's a cat, it's a cat. What the cat connects your frustration to is your arrival, and gradually your arrival becomes something to brace for. And here's why that matters. A cat that's anxious about you coming home is a cat that's more anxious about you leaving. The two ends of the absence get linked. You walk out, they panic. You walk back in, they panic again for different reasons. The whole day becomes a loop of anticipatory stress. The same study found that early use of punishment, telling off, scaring, even deliberately ignoring significantly increased the probability of separation problems developing. And the most common piece of advice owners receive when their cat struggles alone: get a second cat. It has essentially no support in the research. A 2021 study of 77 cats found that male cats in multi-cat households actually vocalized more when left alone than single cats. Because the separation isn't about loneliness in the general sense. It's about the specific absence of a specific person. A second cat doesn't fix that. It just means 2 cats in the house, 2 cats in the home, and 2 cats in the house having different problems. Somebody's neighbor is having a very long week. This is the part that gets missed most often, and it tends to get missed because the cat makes it easy to miss. You come home, the house is intact, no mess, no damage. Maybe your cat looks up from the sofa with an expression that says nothing in particular happened. You assume everything was fine. In the 1960s, Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania ran a series of experiments that would become foundational to psychology. Cats were exposed to the inevitable shocks. Later, when escape was possible, most of those cats didn't try. They lay down, accepted what was happening. He called it learned helplessness, the idea that organisms learn to stop acting when experience teaches them that their actions don't change outcomes. In a major revision of that theory in 2016, Seligman acknowledged he'd framed it backwards. Passivity isn't something animals learn. Passivity is the brain's default when it's under prolonged, inescapable stress. What has to be actively built is the belief that your behavior can change the situation. A cat that stops meowing after an hour alone hasn't accepted the situation. It has stopped believing that its behavior matters. And there's a more recent layer to this. A 2019 study found that in severely anxious cats, long-term cortisol measured from hair samples reflecting months of hormonal accumulation, was sometimes lower than in calmer cats, not because they were less stressed, because their stress system had been running so long it had started to burn out. The data showed that cats were less stressed because their stress system had been running so long, and that a cat that seems fine might be the cat you need to worry about most. Here's something that rarely gets mentioned outside veterinary research, and should. In 2019, a team at Linköping University in Sweden measured long-term cortisol levels in 58 cat owner pairs. Not the cortisol spike of a bad moment, the slow hormonal accumulation over weeks and months captured in hair samples. The levels were synchronized: stressed owner, stressed cat; calm owner, calm cat. When the research looked at the direction of that relationship, which one was driving the other, the answer was clear. The owner's cortisol was predicting the cat's, not the reverse. What this means: a cat already carrying a chronically elevated stress baseline doesn't start the separation from neutral. They start it from a deficit. The 8 hours you're gone aren't happening in isolation. They're happening on top of everything that's already accumulated. The product industry around separation anxiety is enormous. Pheromone diffusers, calming supplements, anxiety wraps, white noise machines. Most owners have tried at least one of them. Most owners will tell you the results were somewhere between modest and nothing, and that's because most of them are treating the 8 hours the owner is gone. The actual point of intervention is the other 16. Let's be specific about the evidence. Cat-appeasing pheromone diffusers sold under the brand name Feline showed no significant improvement in meowing, scratching, crying, or heart rate in the most rigorous placebo-controlled studies. The TV left on TV, no measurable effect versus silence. Puzzle toys provide minutes of engagement. For severely anxious cats, they can backfire entirely. Once the food is gone, the cat registers that you're gone and the real reaction begins. What does have consistent evidence is graduated exposure. Not leaving for 5 minutes and hoping for the best, starting with seconds, walking to the door, coming back in, touching the handle, coming back in, building a history of return so incrementally that the cat is gone. The cat is gone, the cat is gone, touching the handle, coming back in. The cat's nervous system has no chance to spike. It feels almost absurdly slow. Standing at your own front door for 30 seconds and then coming back inside doesn't feel like training. It feels like nothing, but what you're doing isn't teaching obedience. You're providing enough repetitions of the same sequence. You leave, you come back, that the cat's prediction system starts to update. Practitioners who use this approach consistently report the same tipping point. Once a cat can tolerate roughly 40 minutes of absence without distress, progress to 4 or 8 hours tends to follow relatively quickly. The 40-minute mark isn't special. It's just the point at which the cat has accumulated enough evidence to update their internal prediction. For more severe cases, a 229 cat clinical trial found that fluoxetine combined with behavior modification produced 73% improvement compared to 51% for behavior modification alone. And a separate study found that treated cats shifted what researchers called their cognitive bias, their tendency to interpret ambiguous situations pessimistically, toward a more neutral reading. The medication doesn't make them drowsy. It makes their brain more capable of forming new beliefs, which is the whole point. So here's what the cameras have been showing us for 30 years. Some cats wait. Some cats cycle through distress in 20-minute intervals for the entire duration of your absence. Some go quiet in a way that looks fine and isn't, and almost none of them connect what they're experiencing to anything you did wrong, or anything you can fix with a toy or a pheromone plug. What they're responding to is the absence of a specific nervous system. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make sure that their nervous system, yours, the one that their own nervous system has been calibrated against, month by month, until your cortisol and theirs move in the same direction. The cats that struggle most aren't badly trained. They just haven't yet learned in their nervous system, not their brain, that the door opening and the door closing are the same event, just in different order. If this changed how you see what's happening while you're at work, subscribe and leave a comment. Does your cat show signs before you've even picked up your keys? A heartfelt thank you to all of you who have supported us through this journey. Thank you to everyone for the incredible support on the first video. I created this channel with so much love, hoping a handful of people might find it. But I never could have expected this level of response in my very first video. Thank you. This is just the beginning. See you in the next one, this time with a video for our cat lovers.